my name's Peter Kibble. I've been recruiting within accounting and finance for the last 10 years or so. I've helped also all size businesses attract good people across commerce and professional services. And today we're just going to be talking about the size of firm and whether or not it makes a difference, and whether or not there's any real information in if you're making a career decision, whether or not there's any real information based on the size of firm. So we'll just get started. So what we're going to talk about today, broadly speaking, the types of roles in accounting firms. So we're not going to be going into, we'll talk about what we talk about. So types of roles in accounting firms. What is a mid-tier? What, AFR top 100, how they come up with that, 3 to 5 partner firms, and then boutiques. So just getting started. So look, this is probably a little bit transparent, but broadly speaking, like within accounting firms, there are 3 types of roles. There are grinders, minders, and finders. And so this is probably true of most consulting businesses. But so grinders are people who just get the work done. So this would be people at this sort of level, I would imagine, would be in the first year, you're probably not a grinder yet, but between 1 and 3 years, you're probably just churning out the work, getting very strong technical knowledge. Minders are people who are able to manage the clients with little or no intervention from the partners. There's probably like another point here, which, if you're a minder, effectively, you're probably managing a few junior staff as well. And then finders, people who are the future partners within a firm or within a business. So this is relevant if you're looking to move to commerce as much as it is if you're looking to move to become a partner within an accounting firm. Because if you're just a grinder, just churning out the work, then, your success in commerce is probably going to be pretty limited. But if you're a minder, you're probably managing client relationships, so it's stakeholder management stuff. And then if you're a finder, then you're probably on the path of becoming like a commercial manager or a CFO or something. So the question for you when you start thinking about your career is, which one of these are you now? What do you want to be in the future? And which business is going to offer you the best chance of progression through these roles? So it's not as simple as, I get a job in a mid-tier accounting firm, therefore my life, all my problems are solved. It's whether or not you're actually developing skills that people care about, regardless of the size of business that you're working for. So I just want to take a step back and explain to people what we know. What do we know about the makeup of the teams in a firm? So regardless of the size of firm, like most business services teams will have between 4 and 10 staff, irrespective of the size of the business. So, the fees will be reflective of how many staff generally. Mid-tier firms buy small firms. So we know that there is going to be a similarity between the type of work some smaller firms do and mid-tier accounting firms. So something I will say to most people is, if there's a small firm that does the work, then there's probably a team in the big 4 or a mid-tier that does exactly the same work. It's just a little bit more specialised, and the fees are probably higher. I do not want to point out specific firms, However, you can look at places like Kelly Partners, and they're a good firm. I like Kelly Partners. Brett seems like a pretty stand-up guy and all that sort of stuff. Their business model, as far as I'm aware, is to go around and buy up a heap of fees around Australia. And so there's a lot of small firms that they will be buying. And now if somebody's working at Kelly Partners, they'll tell you they're working for a mid-tier accounting firm. And that is probably true to an extent, but equally, it doesn't really tell you anything about the type of work that person is doing. Because if you're working at Kelly Partners, I don't know, Bowral or something, again, I know nothing about Kelly Partners Bowral, then you might probably work on quite small clients. Whereas if you're working at, Kelly Partners North Sydney, your clients are probably more reflective of firms that are based in North Sydney or the CBD or wherever. So you can't really, the point I'm trying to make is you can't really judge the quality of work someone's doing based on the size of firm. Mid-tiers tend to have structured cadetship programs, which means that they hire and provide advancement opportunities to people based on career trajectory. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, career trajectory is a term that gets thrown around a little bit. Work can be narrower in focus. So at a mid-tier firm, so it can be less holistic. If a business has a corporate finance team, the question becomes like, how likely is it that they'll let the business services team assist with that kind of work? So again, like I'm reluctant to paint all mid-tiers with the same brush and all that sort of stuff because there are, it varies. It does actually vary. But the fact is, if a small firm brings in the work, they're probably going to have a crack at getting the work done. Whereas at a big firm, like if your team brings in the work, then the larger the team, the more teams, etc., greater specialization, the more likely it is that pieces of that work will get taken and performed by another team. And then finally, progression within the business is very competitive in a mid-tier accounting firm. So, and it will be based on career trajectory. So, the question becomes like, if you're a grinder at like a smallish firm, and then you go to a mid-tier firm, what job are they hiring you into? Are you going to be a grinder there? Are you going to be a minder? Are they going to be giving you are you the first one to get promoted to a senior or supervisor, whatever? Or is it going to be the person that's been a cadet at that firm, become an intermediate, become a senior? Like who's getting the next job? So that's the question you've got to ask yourself. What is a mid-tier? So the term mid-tier does get thrown around a lot. And in my opinion, really, a mid-tier is a top 10 accounting firm. We can probably go a little bit further than that and say that a mid-tier firm is defined as a firm that has service lines across business services, corporate tax, audit, both listed and non-listed clients, insolvency and corporate finance. When I was recruiting a lot more within commerce, if somebody said to me they were working at a mid-tier, my assumption was it was either the Big Four, well, not the Big Four, but BDO, Grant Thornton, maybe Crowe Howarth at the time, or Findex, the top six. But outside of that, it's pretty much the same as far as like the view of the type of work somebody's doing or whether or not they're at a mid-tier. So I can see how, in the abs, but I can see why people will make career choices around the size of firm they're working for. Like it will appear to be, like in the absence of any other information, the size of firm is probably the best thing to make a decision based on. But however, like we've actually got quite a bit of other information that should inform decision making. So like if you consider there are mid-tier accounting firms, and again, I do not want to name them, but they have pooled resources. And so what that means is you've got 8 partners telling you their piece of work is the most important to get done. And so if you're in a position where you're learning your trade or whatever, then that's a whole, like it's an allocation of attention to something that is not going to make you a better accountant. Like how are you supposed to decide whose work is the priority? So if you're working in a team that is in some way dysfunctional to your development, then that's probably a bigger concern than whether or not you're working at a mid-tier accounting firm or not. So I just wanted to talk real quick about AFR Top 100. So I'm not a big fan of the AFR Top 100, to be perfectly frank. Like essentially it's self-reported financial figures. So, like who's auditing these figures? I don't know. And, I'm sure most firms' reported numbers are accurate. And, I really don't know how these are audited. And given that they're self-reported, there are lots of firms that just don't care about the AFR 100. And so, just taking a cursory look at the top 100 from 2022, number 75, Doyle Partners. I don't know Doyle Partners from Adam, but they look all right. It says their revenues 8 million and 6 partners, 30 staff. Now, like I know myself, 10 firms in Sydney that have higher revenue and fewer staff and are more productive. So, like again, this is no I'm not having to dig it. Doyle Partners here, I'm sure they're a good firm, but it's just more about the list itself. I mean, there are lots of really, really good firms on that list that are not on that list because, either they're too busy being good accountants or, they just don't care for one reason or another. So, that's the AFR. And then again, in the absence of any other information, like I can understand why somebody would prefer an AFR top 100 firm over firms that are not AFR 100. However, like we do have other information, like you don't need to make a decision purely based on the size and revenue of a firm. Like that, and the other thing is as well about revenue, as we know, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. And so like if you're working for a firm that's under a heap of pressure, but they've got a heap of revenue and staff and all that sort of stuff, because they're not making a profit, what's the training and development going to be like at a firm that's under that sort of stress? So there are lots of firms that try and get onto the AFR 100 for better or worse, but they may actually be not the best setup to help you develop. So I don't have an opinion about whether whether an AFR top 100 firm is better or worse than either of the other types of firms. But what is more important, I think, when you're considering which firm to work for, is the partner profile of the firm. So who are you going to be reporting into? What are they like? Have they come from a decent firm? Like, have they come from what are they like? Are they going to be able to manage your workflow effectively? Are they going to be able to give you the support you need to develop? And are they going to give you access to opportunity? The next one would be just around the type of work you'll be doing. So again, like I think the safer bet, sure, AFR top 100, it's bigger. They're probably going to be working on bigger clients, but like I can point to 10 of those firms on the AFR top 100 that only do medical clients. So, which is, again, if you're interested in medical clients, brilliant, but, it's very limiting. So, you might go, okay, I'll go to an AFR top 100, but if you're doing tax compliance for people that have revenue, like businesses with revenue under $1 million, no one but those types of firms really cares about that sort of experience. And so, so you really need to make a decision based on the type of work you'll be doing. And then the final one really is where do people go when they leave the firm? Like if you go to a firm, are you better or worse off for being at that firm? Have they developed you? And we can really help with that information. So I talk about it a little bit on, we get stuff out to on social media and all that sort of stuff around what we know about accounting firms. But the simple fact is, I can tell you with a degree of certainty, if somebody's working at X firm, what is the probability they're going to end up with the job that you want? So like we have this information, we've got detailed information on over 300,000 career moves that we rely on when we're recommending firms. The other final thing it's probably not on this slide, but it's just staff turnover. Okay, so in the first 3 years of your career, especially, like there is a serious switching cost. Okay, and you really need to be conscious of this before you decide to change jobs. Like, there's a massive switching cost, and so every time you change jobs, you've got to think about the fact that it's going to take 3 to 6 months for you to get your head in the right space to actually perform. And so if you're changing jobs every 18 months to go to a bigger firm, then you're probably wasting a lot of your time because, the person that's done that move every 18 months, if they've done 3 moves, 18 months, what's that, 4.5 years, then they've really only got 2 years full-time experience. Like that would be, 3 years full-time experience. And partners of firms will say that to us, that, look, this person's had 3 jobs in 5 years, they don't really have 5 years of experience. I mean, what have they actually learned? So like it is really, really important when you're evaluating where you are and where you want to be, that you look at the opportunity cost as well. Anyway, so that's by the by. So 3 to 5 partner firms, excuse me. It's not whiskey, it's coffee. So 3 to 5 partner firms this is where it gets a little bit murkier. So there are a lot of, I probably should have said 2 to 5 partner firms, but there are lots of excellent 3 to 5 partner accounting firms, and there are lots of really average ones. And so, like if you're somebody who is a grinder and is having a hard time getting an opportunity to develop, the minder skills, like you've got to think about it. If everyone else is going for an AFR top 100 or a mid-tier or a big four or whatever, but no one else is going for these 3 to 5 partner accounting firms, you are gold to these people. And they're going to invest a heap of time and resources into developing you because they see the value in keeping you. And a lot of people would see this as a trade-off in some respect, but it's not. I mean, the quality of work that you'd be doing at a 3 to 5 partner firm is, if it's a good 3 to 5 partner firm or 2 to 5 firm, the quality of the type of work you're doing is going to be comparable to what you'd be doing at a mid-tier. And if you think about it logically, if you take a grinder role at a mid-tier firm and you're a grinder for the next 2 years, be a developmental role into a minder at a 3 to 5 partner accounting firm, that the person that went to the mid-tier into a grinder role and hasn't developed any new skills, are they going to be better or more employable than the person that went to a minder role in a 3 to 5 partner firm? It doesn't make sense to me that you would sacrifice, your actual skill development over the size of firm that you work for, provided that you're going to a decent smaller firm. Like, it has to be a good firm, and we can give you that advice. Like, we can tell you, okay, so if people who work at this firm go to either the big four, mid-tier or commerce, like, we can actually give you that information. Like, that's pretty easy for us, and that's how we make recommendations on what firms people should and should not work for. We can give you that information easy enough. So in my opinion, I don't really see that much difference between a 2 to 5 partner accounting firm and a mid-tier on the surface. I mean, like, if you look at, I'll use a specific example and I'll talk about them, and I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning them, but Sovereign Private, they're an excellent firm, and you probably never heard of them. They've got 2 partners. They're all ex-big four, mid-tier people. They do excellent work. They do all the things you'd expect of an accounting firm. They've got sparkling water in the fridge that people just like. All the fluffy stuff that people want out of a firm, they do all that. They'll also, they've got excellent clients that they work on, and they've got both CFO advisory and business services. And people who leave there go direct to commerce or to the big four. So, if you think about it logically, like, that type of firm should be far, far more attractive to you because you will get advancement opportunities than, say, working at a mid-tier accounting firm where you're just a cog in the machine. So they're just things that you've got to think about when you're considering what firm to go for. So so again, most important things: partner profile, type of work you'll be doing, and where do people go when they leave the firm? Are you better off or worse off having worked at that firm? And we can give you that information really, really, really easily. So boutique firms, so I used to work at the Walker Anderson, or the Anderson Partnership, many, many years ago in the C&I team, and they used to say they're the biggest boutique in the world. It's like, okay, it's a term limited by size. So how can you be the biggest boutique? So a boutique is a term defined by size. I would argue a boutique is 0 to 20 staff. However, this does not really take into account the profitability of those businesses or the quality of work they do. By this definition, I know of several boutiques that have revenue in excess of 6 million. So, they've got 15 staff, 2 partners, 6 million in revenue. I mean, they're killing it. And so, if you're going to, if you're judging a firm purely based on its size in terms of headcount or whether or not they're on an AFR top 100 list, you are going to miss out on all these golden opportunities. When considering a boutique, you just need to remember that there is a lot more variability from firm to firm than a larger firm. So, I know I've been talking a lot about the challenges of working at a mid-tier, but the truth is, there's standardization of processes. The rough edges do tend to get smoothed out. But I will say that, there are some good mid-tiers and bad ones. So but the risk is just a little bit higher with a boutique. And you know, we can help you by giving you some really clear, concise advice around which boutiques are the ones to go for. There are still plenty of excellent boutiques, however, and there are also a lot that have not changed for 20 years. So, like, if you're looking at a boutique firm, and we didn't do a slide on this, but I'd be judging firms based on life cycle. So, you know, you have a lot of small-ish firms that have just come out of, you know, senior managers from bigger firms starting their own firm. And so in the first 12 to 24 months, I'd be pretty reluctant to join one of those firms because, you know, somebody who I've started a couple of businesses, like, you just need to get, you need to make money. And so you don't really have the time to train people as much as you would like when you're at that sort of stage. But once they're sort of gearing up and they've been in the market for a couple of years and they've got a couple more people working there, then they're definitely worth looking at. I'd be really reluctant to go to a boutique that, you know, hasn't changed. Hasn't changed for 20 years, you know, just because it's probably going to be, it's probably going to be a little bit staler. But that's not to say that there aren't excellent firms that are of that profile. But yeah, you just really need to be making a judgment based on whether or not, sorry, our lights just went out, whether or not, making a judgment based on whether or not you know, it's a type of firm that you want to be working for, like you're happy with the culture and the people. How we can help. So I've been talking about a bit, but so we can advise the partner profile of every firm, the career trajectory, when people leave the firm, 360 references on what the firm is actually like to work for. Like, I've been recruiting within this space for longer than I care to admit, and the fact is, like, if you've been doing something for sort of 8 years, I think it's 8 years, then you find out by firstly, you find out by getting burnt a couple of times, but then secondly, you find out by doing real research, and that's what we've done. I mean, whenever we speak to a candidate, we ask them what the firms like to work for. We ask them what the management team's like, whether or not you'd recommend people would go work at that firm. So we do get 360 references from candidates to minimise the risk of somebody making a poor decision or making a decision based on poor information. The main benefit of working for a boutique is simply that advancement opportunities are there. Like, if you're a grinder, they are much more likely to give you the opportunity to develop into a minder/finder. Now, just a caveat on this: there are firms that just will never give employees the opportunity to manage clients, and we can tell you who those are. So if that's an issue for you, then just don't go to those firms. People who go to a boutique, develop the above skills, are far more in demand than somebody who, with the same number of years experience in a mid-tier, who has just been churning out the work. So we've spoken about it a couple of times. Like, if you've got a choice between a job that, a grinder job or a minder job, you should go for the minder job. Like, it doesn't matter what size firm it is. You should be going for that job, because that is what is going to make you more employable in the future. If you're just trading grinder for grinder, then you probably, in my opinion, you're probably making a mistake. The only caveat on that, I guess, would be that if you are working at like a genuinely small firm, or a firm where like it's a bit stale or whatever, then maybe trade a grinder for grinder job. The terms are a little bit interesting. Maybe trade that, go to another grinder role, but ensure that if you're taking that role, there's some sort of training and development incentive for taking that role. So you might be going to a good 3 to 5 partner accounting firm that has a heap of people doing the CA at the same time. Like, that would make sense, because you're around similar sorts of people at similar stages in their career. But like, as a general rule, you probably shouldn't be changing jobs from unless you're progressing in some way on that chain. So how should I make a decision on where to work? So yeah, so like I think we keep coming back to this point, but there are no hard and fast rules with this, and it does heavily depend on your long-term career goals, current developmental stage or proximal stages of development, if we want to get into educational terms, and work-life balance. So I'm nervous about putting work-life balance in there because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I want to go to a firm with excellent training and development and have 4 days work from home. Well, sorry, you can't have both. You can either get training and development or you can work from home for 4 days. Like, what do you want? So so you do need to make a decision based on what level you are in your career, and if you're 5-7 years in and you know your job back to front and you don't really need that much support, then yeah, sure, 4 days work from home is not. I mean, you're probably not going to get a great job if that's the main criteria, but it's less important for you to be in the office all the time. But if you're 0 to 5, you need to be in the office, like you do, and the work-life balance is a function of like whether or not you're working back till 10 or if you just have a reasonable working day. That's how I'd be judging work-life balance. If you're starting out your career, then you need to be working in a team that will give you the client experience that will make you the most employable to the most number of people. Like, and we get this a lot with candidates, like, I want to try a few different things, or I want to work in a few different areas. Just make a decision on what team you like, what you're happy to do while you complete the CA. And if it's business services, it's business services. If it's tax, it's tax. If it's audit, it's audit. But every time you change service lines, you're going back to square one. Like, it's a waste of your time. And you really need, and I would go a step further than that and say, if you're switching from, say, like a role that like I would trade a role which is only sort of one specific type of client to a broader client base, just because you do want to you want to have a bit of an understanding of how most accounting things work. But as a general rule, you want to choose roles based on you want to stay in the same service line. Training development opportunities relative to where you are in your career. So like there are actually firms that are way better at training staff than others, and it's really, really easy for us to point those firms out to you. But what I will say, there's a cost. You can't have both. So if somebody's going to invest time and resources in your training and development, like they'll like significantly above and beyond what you can expect from comparable businesses, then they're probably not going to pay you 20 grand above market, because they're investing that money in your training. So staff turnover, this is huge, like especially if you're starting out in your career. And again, like if you're 5 years plus, then it's less important because you should have a decent technical understanding. But if you're in your first 3 years of your career, like you do need to go to a firm where they've got low staff turnover and you can see that people progress through the business. And partner profile. So I mean, that the old adage, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time around. Like, you want to be working with people that are good, and you need to be impressed by the partners that you're working for. So if you're not excited by working for a partner, or if you don't think they've got some pull, then think about it. But the partner profile should be a big factor. So look, we probably got through that reasonably quickly. Everyone's situation is going to be very, very different. We do these things just to give people, broad overview of what's going on in the market, and what you should be considering. But, like if you do want actual real advice relevant to your specific circumstances, then get in contact with myself, Bronte or Carmen. Follow us on LinkedIn. We do put a lot of stuff up there. But we're always happy to speak with people. I've never got upset at somebody for not accepting a job. At the end of the day, the majority of what we do is giving people good advice, and hopefully if we give enough people good advice, then we'll place enough people. Like that's how it works for us. And we're pretty, yeah, we're very low touch, but yeah, we would encourage you to get in contact if you do have any questions around yeah, your career within accounting and finance. But yeah, thanks for your attention.